We are drowning in news. Writers alone put out 3.5 million news stories a year. That's just one source. My question is, how many of those stories are going to matter in the long run? Well, that's the idea behind a foundation called the Long Now Foundation, which was founded by Kevin Kelly and Stuart Brand. And what they look for is news stories that might still matter 50 or 100 or 10,000 years from now. And when you look at the news through that filter, a lot falls by the wayside. To take the stories from last year or recent years, how many of them are going to matter in a decade? The top story could be about the economy, but the founder bets that sooner or later the recession is going to become old news. So, what kind of stories are made for the future? Let's take science. Someday, little robots will go through our bloodstreams fixing things. That someday is already here if you are a mouse. Some recent stories say that nanobees zap tumors with real bee venom. Scientists are sending in genes into the uh, brain nowadays. Robot they built can crawl through the human body and examine the problems and diagnose it. What about resources? How are we going to feed 9 billion people? We have trouble feeding 6 billion today, and reports say that there's over a billion people hungry. Britain will starve without genetically modified crops. Bill, Bill Gates, fortunately, has bet a billion on agricultural research. Well, then let's go to global politics. The world's going to be very different when and if China sets the agenda, and they may. They have overtaken US as the world's biggest car market. They have overtaken Germany as the largest exporter, and they have started doing DNA tests on kids to choose their careers. We are finding all kinds of ways to push back the limits of what we know. Some recent discoveries say that there is an ant colony from Argentina that has now spread to every continent but Antarctica. There's a self-directed robot scientist that's made a discovery, and soon science may no longer need us. Robots might do the research and the discovery work. But the founder's pick for the top long news story of the recent years was this one: water found on the moon. Makes it a lot easier to put a colony up there. And if NASA doesn't do it, China might, or somebody uh, in your family might write a big check for that someday. Well, you see, my point is this: in the long run, some news stories are more important than others.